I want to share with you a thought that I've entitled Walking the Tightrope as a Minister. I would have never have guessed that the most difficult time I would have in ministry would happen after I turned 65. I'm going to share my heart with you, not because I want your sympathy, but so that you will understand what I'm going through and what other ministers are going through during these trying times. But first, let me read you a passage from the Bible that I read this morning in my quiet time. In Romans 15, 1 through 2 in the CSB, it says, "Now we who are strong have an obligation to bear the weaknesses of those without strength and not to please ourselves. Each one of us is to please his neighbor for his good, to build him up." The passage explains that in Romans 14, Romans 15, there will be some times where some people feel free to do some things, and some people, because of their conscience, do not feel free to do the same things. The bottom line of Romans 14 and 15 is that we need to give each other some slack. Lost people make everything about themselves, but Christians are to put other people first. Now let me explain the analogy I'm using in this title, Walking a Tightrope. When you walk a tightrope, balance is absolutely essential. If you lean a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right, you can fall to your ruin. I feel pressure from people from all sides, while my task is to find a biblical balance. So I want to address several areas in which we are walking a tightrope as we lead the church as a staff. Now, we're now having 6 weekly services to be able to minister to those who want an in-person worship experience. Roughly, last week, half the number we normally have in worship were there with us. That means that at least half of our people do not feel comfortable in coming back. Now, we're doing our best to provide a good worship experience for those who are worshiping at home. We've developed a host of new ways to keep in touch with people, such as this video. Last week in an email blast, Dave sent out my cell phone and my email in light of the fact that a scammer used my name to try to trick people to buy Amazon cards. But I really want you to have that information because I want you to feel free to contact me as a pastor. So my email is scoggins@fbchnc.org. My cell phone is 704-466-0257. Please contact me if you need me. In light of the school board's decision, we're walking a tightrope on how and when to begin children's ministries again. We're going to use our Hindu at Home tomorrow to air a roundtable talk by our staff leaders on what we're thinking in these areas. I have great sympathy for our superintendent and our board. Their conclusion was that with the restrictions the governor has placed us under, it would be impossible to do in-person learning in our schools. We are having several meetings as a staff this week to find out how we can assist parents in educating their children both spiritually and mentally. We want to see if in our church we can fill in some of the gaps that are out there because of the lack of in-person education. But let me touch on a few more of those issues that make it difficult to walk the tightrope. No issue in our area or in our church is more divisive than the issue of the governor's order to wear masks inside buildings when you cannot be 6 feet apart. Some complain that this is an infringement on our rights as Americans. Others believe that it is ultimately selfish not to wear a mask. Now, I have my own opinions about the effectiveness of masks, but my opinion is not the issue. Romans 13 and 1 Peter 2 teach us that Christians are to obey the laws of government with only one exception. If the laws of man contradict the laws of God, then we're to put the laws of God above the laws of man and face the consequences. Church services have an exemption from this mandate, but we're trying to walk the tightrope when it comes to wearing a mask in church. We've reduced our balcony capacity to use every other pew, but designated it as a place where people can worship without wearing a mask. I do ask people to wear their masks when they're around others until they reach the balcony. Now, the numbers are low enough in our Thursday 11 a.m. service and our Sunday 8 a.m. service so that people spread out across the building more than 6 feet apart, and then because they are more than 6 feet apart, we allow those who want to take their masks off in those 2 services. We want those who are elsewhere who cannot be 6 feet apart to wear the mask out of consideration for others. If you strongly feel that a mask mandate is an infringement on your rights or a mask mandate is the only sound policy for health, express your opinions at the ballot box, but not the church. There's a difference between political issues and biblical issues. Wearing a mask is not something addressed in the Bible. Because I've spent time listening to black members of our church, I've tried to share with you their deep concerns about the racism that they have seen and experienced in their lives. Racism is a sin. It is not a social justice issue. I've also tried to balance the condemnation of racism with the condemnation of the recent attacks on police officers and the rise of violence among protesters. There's a faction in our own Baptist denomination that has decided that anyone who is speaking out against racism is somehow moving this denomination toward liberalism. I'm against racism. I'm against anarchy. I'm against violence against police officers because those are issues addressed clearly in the Bible. The last area that I want to speak about is a tightrope that we're having to walk between caution and fear. Many are saying that they won't come back to church until it's safe. Let me help you understand something. It will never be safe. This is a dangerous world. The flu 1 winter ago killed far more children and young people than COVID has. If we closed church every time a member got the flu, or if we closed schools every time a student got the flu, we would be closed more than we would be open. I want to stand by those who are cautious, and I want to minister in person to those who feel the benefit of being with other Christians, and they feel that that outweighs the risk they feel from the virus. No one can guarantee your safety, friend. No politician, no scientist. God alone is our strength and our shield. In James 1:5, God invites us to ask him for wisdom when we need it. Please pray for God to give us wisdom as we walk these tight ropes together. I love every one of you. We want to be the church we should be to every member. So we'll walk this tightrope for you. God bless you.